You, for instance, see no need to have any anti-discrimination regulations or laws or whatever you have it in a place that receives no public money.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because
so I am free to discriminate.
Yes.
If I have my company.
Well, because I so value freedom of association. And when you say you believe in freedom of association, you have to be a person to allow people to be free to associate in ways that you find despicable. That is the true test of one's commitment to say.
Ku Klux Klan was a free group of associates.
They engaged in violence. They engaged in violence. They were killing people.
Right.
I'm against that. I said, I believe people ought to have the right to engage in peaceable, voluntary exchange.
On that reasoning, you're parting from the principle that the person who is using the freedom of speech to say things you hate will just do that and stay there. What if that person, the objective is an entirely different one, is to use the freedom of speech to then later on limit your freedom of speech.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
But it happens.
That should not be allowed. And for example, think about this kind of discrimination. Would you allow it if you were the governor or the president? When I was choosing a wife to marry in 1960, I did not give white women an equal opportunity to marry me. I didn't give Brazilian women equal opportunity to marry me. I discriminated and kept my choices to black women. Should I be able to freely associate that way?
Yes, you should.
Okay, that's discrimination. Evidently, what I'm suggesting is that discrimination, racial discrimination, would tend to die in and of itself unless it's backed by some kind of law. How moral is it for one to say, look, let's help individual D today by punishing individual C today for what individual A of yesterday did to individual B of yesterday. Now what I mean there is that let's punish, you're saying, let's help a black today by punishing a white of today for what a white of yesterday did to a black of yesterday. That's not a very, very good system for me. And by the way, I might add that Brazilian blacks, they should be far ahead of American blacks.
Why aren't they?
Well, I think because they're not, the society in Brazil is not as free.
Of course not. Discrimination still exists.
No, I don't mean that sense. I mean,
it is true.
Well, yes, but I mean in terms of regulation of economic activity.
Discrimination is insidious. It doesn't need to be in the laws. It doesn't need to be written. It just needs to be exercised. It exists in Brazil, has always existed.
Well, I'm saying that it exists everywhere. It exists in the United States. But I'm saying that economic liberty lessens the pressure of the racial discrimination. That is, for example, when people are able to make laws regulating, as I gave you the example of the taxi cab industry, when they're able to make laws, well, then that strengthens racial discrimination. But if you say, look, anybody can get in the cab business who wants to.
Because one could understand your affirmation by saying, I don't know, Brazilian blacks are lazy. Why they didn't do so well?
I wouldn't give that as a reason.
Why would it be?
Well, as I just said, because of the economic regulation, that is the lack of economic liberty in Brazil. That is traditional with Brazil.
Economic freedom is, in your opinion, the way.
Yes. And if you look around the world, and you say, if you were to rank people, you go to the International Amnesty and rank countries according to economic and human rights protections. If you rank countries according to per capita income, you would find the greatest wealth at those countries that have the greatest free market system, and the poorest at the socialist or the communist end of the economic spectrum. And you say, well, how come Chile is richer than most other countries in South America. It's because, not that they have great political freedom under Pinochet, they had greater greater economic freedom. And if you say, how come South Korea is richer than North Korea? It's because they have greater economic. How come West Germany was greater than richer than East Germany? It's because they had greater economic freedom.
You have a black president.
Yeah.
In the United States,
Yeah.
first time. Is he going to be a success in the post?
I don't believe so.
Why not?
I believe he's going to be like Jimmy Carter. It's going to be a failed presidency, and I think that's not very good for the first black president.
Why is it going to be a failure?
Well, if you look at the health care pill that nobody wants, that very few Americans want. If you look at our position in foreign diplomacy. And if you look at the economic problems that the president is dealing with.
What about the economic problems he inherited?
Well, but you can only use that excuse for so long.
You mean to say that if you give me a house that's half destroyed, after 6 months I cannot argue that the house is half destroyed?
That's just like people all around the world blaming colonialism for their problems. People in third world countries saying, oh, it's colonialism. They're just looking for excuses. If you look back during the Roosevelt administration, the New Deal made the Great Depression far worse than it would have been.
The second term of FDR's presidency, this was the richest country in the world coming from the biggest depression. So it might have made matters far worse, and then this country in 1942 was already the richest country in the world. It was the same president that you say made matters much worse.
Well, yes, he did. He heightened most economists who study the 1930s. They say, well, without the New Deal and also Herbert Hoover's last year, the Depression would have lasted 3 years. It would have been a very, very sharp downturn, but he turned it into an affair that did not end until 1945 or 1946.
Isn't this a little bit of armchair coaching?
No, it isn't. Look, if you look at our country from 1787, its inception, until today, until 1930 rather, nobody thought that the federal government ought to be involved in the economic affairs of the country. And it was not until 1930s when the federal government got involved and made the situation worse.
If I remember correctly, in 1929 there was a big debacle in Wall Street in the country all of a sudden found itself.
That's just plain not true. The stock market crash in 1929 had nothing to do with depression. Nothing.
What caused it?
And it was the acts by the Federal Reserve Bank.
After the crash?
No. It was in the late 30s. Late 20s, early 30s. If you look in 1987, we had a massive stock market crash in our country.
It was a big one.
It was no depression. Stock markets and depression, they don't go together. I believe the greatest input to the welfare of mankind is personal liberty.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Se você quiser saber mais sobre essa entrevista, entre no blog do Milênio, no site da Globo News.